Welcome back, young writers. Today we're going to talk about setting again. You're going to get sick of talking about setting. You're going to get sick of talking and hearing about sensory details. But it's so important. It's so important. With fiction, you're creating a world, and you're not going to engage your reader unless you invite them into the world you've created. And you do that by describing the world. You can't just tell them about it, you need to take them there. And instead of telling you how to do that, I'm going to give you a masterclass in how to do that by sharing an excellent book. I'm going to read the first chapter of The Tiger Rising. It's by Kate DiCamillo. She lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She's a local. Her first book was Because of Winn-Dixie. You might have heard of that. It's a really good book, and it was turned into a movie. This was her second book, and it was published in 2001, before any of you were published, so you might not even know about it. You know some of her other works. You probably know the one about the pig, Mercy Watson. She writes a bunch of other ones. She writes with another person, Allison McGee. She writes Pink and Golly, something like that. She writes a lot of really popular books, um, but this is still my favorite. And I think it's because I went to see her read this. Nobody knew who she was. She just published Winn-Dixie, and then she published this. And I went to a little bookstore in St. Paul and saw her read, and I got to actually talk to her. And with really famous authors, you don't get to do that very often. But she wasn't famous yet, so. But you're gonna see the way she brings us into the setting. It just makes it come alive. It's an unusual story. I mean, the title, The Tiger Rising, right? It's an unusual story. Let me just read you the first chapter and you'll see what I mean. The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. Chapter 1. That morning, after he discovered the tiger, Rob went and stood under the Kentucky Star Motel sign and waited for the school bus, just like it was any other day. The Kentucky Star sign was composed of a yellow neon star that rose and fell over a piece of blue neon in the shape of the state of Kentucky. Rob liked the sign. He harbored a dim but abiding notion that it would bring him good luck. Finding the tiger had been luck, he knew that. He had been out in the woods behind the Kentucky Star Motel, way out in the woods, not really looking for anything, just wandering, hoping that maybe he would get lost or get eaten by a bear and not have to go to school ever again. That's when he saw the old Beauchamp gas station building, all boarded up and tumbling down. Next to it, there was a cage, and inside the cage, unbelievably, there was a tiger. A real life, very large tiger, pacing back and forth. He was orange and gold and so bright it was like staring at the sun itself, angry and trapped in a cage. It was early morning, and it looked like it might rain. It had been raining every day for almost 2 weeks. The sky was gray, and the air was thick and still. Fog was hugging the ground. To Rob, it seemed as if the tiger was some magic trick rising out of the mist. He was so astounded at his discovery, so amazed, that he was afraid to look at the tiger for too long, afraid that the tiger would disappear. He stared, and then he turned and ran back into the woods toward the Kentucky Star. And the whole way home, while his brain doubted what he had seen, his heart beat out the truth to him. Tiger, tiger, tiger. That was what Rob thought about as he stood beneath the Kentucky Star sign and waited for the bus. The tiger. He didn't think about the rash on his legs, the itchy red blisters that snaked their way into his shoes. His father said that it would be less likely to itch if he didn't think about it. And he didn't think about his mother. He hadn't thought about her since the morning of the funeral, the morning he couldn't stop crying, the great heaving sobs that made his chest and stomach hurt. His father, watching him, standing beside him, had started to cry too. They were both dressed up in suits that day. His father's suit was too small, and when he slapped Rob to make him stop crying, he ripped a hole underneath the arm of his jacket. There ain't no point in crying, his father had said afterward. Crying ain't going to bring her back. It had been 6 months since that day. 6 months since he and his father had moved from Jacksonville to Lister, and Rob had not cried since, not once. The final thing he did not think about that morning was getting onto the bus. He specifically did not think about Norton and Billy Threemonger waiting for him like chained and starved guard dogs, eager to attack. Rob had a way of not thinking about things. He imagined himself as a suitcase that was too full, like the one he had packed when they left Jacksonville after the funeral. He made all his feelings go inside the suitcase. He stuffed them in tight and then sat on the suitcase and locked it shut. That was the way he not thought about things. Sometimes it was hard to keep the suitcase shut, but now he had something to put on top of it, the tiger. So as he waited for the bus under the Kentucky Star sign, and as the first drops of rain fell from the sullen sky, Rob imagined the tiger on top of his suitcase, blinking his golden eyes, sitting proud and strong, unaffected by all the not thoughts inside, straining to come out. I don't even know what to say. That writing is so amazing. You can see why she's become so famous. But I do want you to notice a couple things. She introduced the setting in a couple ways. She introduced the place, and the place is Lister. It's a city in Florida. We don't need to know that though, but it's outside a motel, standing next to the street underneath a neon light, half burned out neon light. And also, the place is the woods behind the motel where he was walking, just wandering around, and he found an abandoned gas station with this cage with a tiger in it. So we get a very clear view of the place. But the setting is also the weather, the fact that it's cloudy and humid and about to rain. That's the setting at this moment. And we also get a little bit of the setting in the broader sense of where they are in time. They're 6 months after his mom's funeral. So when we say time is part of the setting, we don't only mean the time in the day or the month of the year. We don't know what month of the year it is here, but where it is in that character's life story. In this case, would you agree that the fact that his mom died 6 months earlier is going to be important to the story? Yes, it's obviously important. It's one of those things he packs into his emotional suitcase that he won't open. So that's part of the setting. Tells us something about where he is in his own life story, where he is geographically. He's standing in the almost rain under a half burned out hotel sign waiting for a school bus. And it really sets the stage for the story. I bet you want to read more. And if you do, I'm not a salesperson, but get yourself a copy of The Tiger Rising by Kate DiCamillo. You won't regret it. So, how do you, a fourth grade writer, quickly develop the skills of a trained professional author to describe the setting? Well, you can start by picturing it yourself. If you can't picture the setting, how on earth are you going to explain it to the reader? So you need to get your visualization going. Visualization is where you picture something that you don't actually see. It's using a little bit of your imagination, a little bit of creativity, but also some realistic thoughts, right? Uh, in this case, you want it to be someplace, if it's like this at least, that almost could actually exist. You want to see details. You want to know what the weather's like. You want to know what's around your characters. What do they see when they look across the street? Are there any landmarks nearby them? Are there buildings? Are there woods or other natural phenomenon? Lakes, rivers, trees? You want to know what's happening in their life, right? Did something major happen to them recently? Are they happy? Are they sad? In general, is their family happy or sad? These are parts of, you could say they're part of the character, but they're really a big part of the setting, because the setting is the situation in which we find that character. We find this boy excited, but also a little deeply sad in an almost rainy day, waiting to go get picked on a school bus on his way to a school he never wants to go to again, somewhere outside a motel. And that's the setting. So with your writing today and in the future, I'd like you to try to bring as many of those unexpected details, but important details into your writing as possible. If you were going to write about somebody at their house, you don't just say, uh, Jimmy was at his house, right? What does the house look like? What kind of neighborhood is it in? Um, Is it a place that he likes or doesn't like? Does he like his neighbors? Are they friendly? Are they not? Is there a lot of noise? Is it really silent? What's the weather like? Is it a beautiful sunshiny day? Or is it a slate gray sky? Are there clouds billowing up? Or is there snow or ice blanketing everything? These are all little things, but they help to build your world. And if you can build your world, then your reader will be able to join you there. So happy writing. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.